Hi, my name is Brandon Graisley. I'm a high school computer science teacher. We're going to talk about how to store values in field variables, and I'm working inside Android Studio building an Android app today. So I have a few user interface components ready. I have a text view, or rather an edit text here. I've called it edit text. Two buttons. One is called the store button and the retrieve button. And then last, there's a text view down at the bottom here. The user will type their name in this edit text. When they click the store button, it will store that information in a field variable. Clicking retrieve will grab it out of that field variable and put a message down here in the text view. So let's go ahead over to the Java file and work on this area. I have methods connected to my buttons already, store for the first one, retrieve for the second. So let's begin by storing the value that is currently in the edit text. To do that, we're going to need to look into the edit text. I'm going to call it input. We have to find it first by its ID from the XML file. It's the edit text. I called that one. And then we have to grab the value from that edit text and save it. Now, I'm going to start by making a local variable, and let's call it name. It's going to come from the input. I'll use get text. That gets an editable. I have to turn that into a string. So now that is stored in a local variable. We're going to change this because storing it in a local variable is not going to be good enough. As soon as this method ends, this variable name will disappear. It'll be collected and the value will no longer be available for us. So instead of storing it in a local variable, we don't declare this variable here. We declare it up here inside the class, but not inside any method. We just declare it. You don't say equals anything. Declaration is fine here for this. So we have our variable now. You'll notice it's purple. Field variables are purple in Android Studio. Now that value will be stored permanently. Well, as long as the app is running, that value is stored. If you close the app, that value disappears. Let's go down to the retrieve area here. In this one, we have already stored the value in the name variable, so we just need to output it. We're going to do that to our text view, and I'll call it output. Find view by ID, r.id. And this one's called text view. Okay, now let's actually place it there, output.setText, and I'll put a little message. Your name is, put a space, and follow that up with whatever value is stored in name. So it'll retrieve the value from the field variable and place it there in the text view. Okay, let's give this a run, and we'll see the effect of storing the value and exactly when the value changes in the field variable. Okay, our app is up and ready to run. Let's click here and I'll type in my name. And when I press store, it will save that value inside of the name field variable. There's no effect down here yet because we didn't put anything on the screen. Let's retrieve that value. Your name is Brandon. Okay, now if I instead change that to something else and I press retrieve, it will still say your name is Brandon because the name variable has not been changed yet. When I press store, it now holds the value Jim. When I retrieve, it's retrieved the name Jim. Now, if I were to empty this out and press store, it's going to store an empty string. So when I click retrieve, your name is all that we get. I'm just going to show you what happens if we close the app and restart it. I can restart it down here. And I'm going to press retrieve right away. Your name is null. The value that is stored here is the null value, or rather it doesn't point anywhere. There is no string there. And so this is because this field variable has not been initialized. Now you can initialize field variables with literals like this. I put in a straight up value. I can put Brandon if I want to, and then by default it will be Brandon, a default value. Another way to do that is to, instead of putting it here in the where we declare our field variables, we could do something in the onCreate method, which runs at the beginning of the when the app is first run. So it's a good idea to do that. If you don't want it to be initialized, then perhaps when you go to retrieve, instead you should have some kind of a check. If name is not equal to null, then you can go ahead and do this other stuff. That will check to see if it's null first. If it is not null, go ahead and do the printing stuff. But if it is null, then this block won't run and the button won't do anything. Okay, I want to do a couple more things to improve on this code. I noticed that this edit text input equals this line here is going to run every single time we click the store button. However, we don't really need it to happen every single time. If we can remember this value, this pointer or reference to the edit text, then we don't need to keep looking for it every single time. So let's make a field variable called edit text input. And we only want to do this once. So we're going to steal this line and put it up here in our onCreate method. We have to get rid of the declaration though. If I were to put in the declaration edit text, declaring the type, then this variable input is a local variable with the same name as this field variable. And you're allowed to do that. You can see it says it's never used. You're allowed to make a local variable with the same name as a field variable, but then you have to be careful about which one you mean. And if you use input like this, it would not store it in the right place, not permanently. So let's back that out of there. Input now refers to this field variable the way we want. We'll do the same thing for the, sorry, let me get rid of some spaces here. We'll do the same thing for our output text view. And we'll declare it up here in the list of field variables. That was a text view, and we called it output. Now those two things are initialized right here, so they will be ready to go when I need them in these other two methods here. Okay, so now let's run it one more time just to show you that things are still working. This trick here of initializing any user interface components that you're going to need to use repeatedly, this is a good one. This saves us having to run the find view by ID code over and over again. Okay, I think we're running here again. Okay, everything looks like it's working fine again. All right, so that's the end of that. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thanks.